Herbert's 100 Harem. His stint as a villain had gone a little too well. That and Yzma was way too on board for giving them all the runaround the next day. The little question mark statues locked up in puzzles and made of tritite and painted green to force people to think at least a little laterally. Each one had a series of coordinates and a single letter or number on them. The little statues would spell out a location and a date for his next appearance as Deathstroke and had to be arranged in the proper order, with the only hint of which one is actually the first one being the one that none of the others led to. Start with the first, go down the line, and boom, literally spelled out for you. Well, only so long as you keep track of which one came from where, at least, just a little test of their note-taking abilities. That's important when dealing with an intellectual challenge. Also, the trail of the statues would outline a big question mark. It seemed on brand, and Yzma had nearly lost a lung laughing as hard as she did with this bit. Clearly she's enjoying herself as much as he is, and as much as the boys back on the Dauntless are. Hell, if he were to implement even a fraction of the ideas they're throwing at him, then he'd go from a person playing a supervillain into an actual supervillain. He had, however, handwritten a ton of snarky comments on post-it notes and slapped them on all the statues. Even when you're not there, it's important to taunt the heroes. Apparently, the boys back on the Dauntless were raffling out who got the posting here, and Admiral Cistern was just letting them. It was important to be hands-off from time to time, apparently, and the guy who'd be Bane was already chosen. He had already started his Titan Squad-style enhancements. Officer Santiago Bernal was looking forward to remaking his old high school luchador mask and having fun with it. Apparently, most of the messages were about how to not actually break a bat, though. The supervillain bit was fun and games, with advertisement mixed in, not actual murder attempts, which was a bit of a load off of Herbert's mind. He doesn't want his fellows to lose themselves in the fun and accidentally find out they did rob a bank or take someone hostage. There's such a thing as getting too far into character, or becoming the mask, as others would put it. But that's not the order of the day. Nope, he's going over the last few touches of equipment to hunt a Skathak lava serpent. He's got the blue heron to try out on one. Its reinforced scales means it likely won't notice the vacuum tunnel until the flare of plasma is trying to eat through its head. But he has doubts about it. The serpent already exists at screamingly hot temperatures that he's going to have to pump a lot of axiom in order to stop from baking in the most literal sense imaginable. The hot air alone could kill him without protection, which calls into question the wisdom of using a heat-based weapon against it, but he had read the report. Plasma bombs and similar such attacks have done harm to these serpents before, which will be something to see to say the least, but he secured a few cryogenic weapons anyways. Apparently, they were growing in popularity in the local area, and a few extra had been bought, including 2 models that Herbert hadn't run into before, so he was not only getting his hands on new equipment but field testing them as well. The glacier gun created an axiom construct on a shard of ice and launches it. The destruction of the ice breaches the chamber holding the axiom construct and unleashes it, causing all thermal energy in the area to be converted instantly into axiom, effectively making a flash freeze. A very powerful weapon, but the downside is that it not only stood out like a flare to any amount of axiom sensing, but it had a very long reload time. The absolute fastest the gun could fire was twice a minute, and that's if the weapon hadn't been fired in the minute previous. 40 seconds between shots is absurd on anything less than a muzzle-loaded cannon. The second new toy was the thermal siphon, a firefighting tool that had proven to be too effective and was then weaponized, a common state of affairs in the weapon manufacturing business. This toy appeared to shoot a freezing blue beam at things, but what it actually did was suck away all thermal energy from an area. Of course, the energy had to go somewhere, and it had a pair of heat sinks and an axiom array between them that bleeds off the heat into more raw axiom, effectively meaning that the weapon, if the array was functioning properly, could be used in near perpetuity. However, it's not perfect either. The siphoning beam sticks to things, for lack of a better term, and the gun must be deactivated before you can turn the weapon to follow anything, which is a major problem, as its second weakness is that it takes several moments to really get things to a level where you can freeze something solid. He preferred the glacier gun as it worked off similar principles to his main weapon of choice against the serpents, a Mark 1.5 initiator, or the caster gun. They had already improved it by slimming it down and streamlining the loading mechanism. They couldn't get it to be a multi-shot weapon yet, but it was a lot more efficient and far less chunky than the previous model. The glacier gun and the one-shot cryogenic caster shells worked off the same principles. The caster gun was therefore faster and more reliable at both medium and long range, which is the distance he wants to keep the Skathak lava serpents at. He's not completely sure how he's going to butcher it yet, let alone eat the creature. But Grandma Yzma has assured him that she not only knows how but will give him a comprehensive lesson. He's both scared and intrigued. Thankfully, the next part of any hunt is a nice and easy one. The Skathak serpents are so honking huge that they're easily tracked, and in general the numbers are only culled by about 1,000 every major hunting season, which was also the time of year they were most aggressive, as it was their mating season, and if these things were allowed to breed uncontrollably, they would reduce the upper parts of the planet into an ashen wasteland. Again, apparently the big brutes were responsible for the complete destruction of every biosphere on the planet barring their own, which meant for the world to recover the hunting was actually needed. They were more like natural disasters than animals, but they still had at least animal-scale intelligence to guide their volcanic-scale strength. Pound per pound, the lava serpents were his most dangerous prey, and they had a lot of pounds to go around. So today, his main goal wasn't even to take one down. Today, his goal was to learn. Watch how one moves, how it thinks, how it reacts, and when he had all that, he would have his answer on the question of how to kill one. Ice is his current answer, but there's no telling what today's pot shots and notes will teach him. It takes about an hour to finish his prep. He switched out his normal body stocking and visor for high heat resistance versions. His Axiom brand and his own Axiom abilities should keep him at a comfortable temperature, but when you're walking into hell itself, you best have at least 3 answers to the problem. The brand, the Axiom control he can actively use, the systems in the stocking to keep him at a decent temperature, and the outer suit's own cryogenic systems to keep him nice and cool. He's going to be walking into the mouth of hell, and so cool that he'll be pale from it. Think you're ready? Yzma asks, and he regards her own hot weather setup. It's a series of force fields designed to keep her in a controlled, comfortable atmosphere. They're usually used for spacewalks or low-grade repairs in areas where things like micrometeors or other such debris isn't a real issue. Still, if it's rated for an environment as hostile as space, it'll hold up in a volcanic one. She wisely has 4 backups to her main one, and so does every girl heading out with them. He had only managed to convince about half of them to wear the body stockings and armor that he had on, as the rest thought it was overkill. The visor registers temperatures at 1,000 degrees when the doorway to the outside opens. Yzma's the first one out and latches onto the cliff face wall. Far below, at nearly a kilometer's distance, is a Skathak lava serpent, and it's even more impressive to see in the scale. This one is coiled up in a sleep, but is easily so big that any attack that isn't immediately aimed at a vital organ is just going to piss it off. Its resting temperature is a full 100 degrees higher than the air around it. Herbert frowns under his mask and armor. This thing must be using Axiom to keep itself in one piece at these temperatures. So that's how you take the trophies, he notes out loud. Isma turns to look at him. You don't. It's so hot that if you kill it in its sleep, it solidifies into a chunk of slag. Slay it while it's awake, and it just burns away. The axiom is literally holding that natural disaster together. Correct, Isma confirms even as he jumps out of the transport and latches onto the wall himself. A lot of areas have been worn smooth by the serpents climbing them, but these have given birth to ridges that he can grip easily. He doesn't even need axiom to hang on. The rest join shortly afterwards. Come on, this one is nearing mating age and has set up its home too close to the colony for anyone's comfort. This is one of the most important roles of hunting. Some creatures are just too dangerous to tolerate. So it's like those Carnecks the bounty hunters took apart some months ago, Herbert notes out loud. Yes, Carnecks are another species like the Skathak lava serpent. Top tier on a beautiful world with a lot of potential, also has an absolute monster that devastates it far too often. If hunters don't show up regularly enough, or if one gets too close to a colony in an off-season, then a bounty is offered on the beast to keep people safe. Isma explains. These serpents are less about glory and more about duty. We all have a place in the galaxy and a responsibility to keep it together. This is the hunter's responsibility, to cull the beast so the being may thrive. I was sold on protecting people long before the hunting trip, grandmother. You don't have to keep pitching, Herbert remarks. You're not the only one I'm teaching, young man. Isma answers with a slightly reproving tone. Fair enough. He answers before grinning under his mask. Anyways, today's mostly recon and learning anyways. Mind if I go ahead so I can start studying the prey properly? Only so long as you keep up several clear paths of retreat, she answers. But of course, that's just good sense, he says, before swinging himself more fully into the indent that lava serpents had carved into the walls and sliding down the slicked stone. Coming to the end of the indent, he jumps out hard and lands into another indent on the opposite side of the canyon walls. He rides the indents over and over again until he's just 100 meters away from the sleeping serpent. It's absolutely gigantic and only an adolescent coming up on its first mating season. The creature is so large its individual scales are easily the size of dinner plates. Like many snakes, its eyelids are either non-existent or transparent, so it's looking in his general direction despite not being aware of him. Also, he's likely too small for it to care about. If this thing is one of the 20-plus foot-long anacondas, then he's an ant in front of it, too small to eat. The plateau the creature is resting on is just a few dozen meters over the lava, and there are some tiny things flitting through the air. Although he does see something almost Earth-like beyond the ash birds and lava snake, iron snails. That was something he had to confirm with roughly 10 different people on the Dauntless before he believed they existed. But here was a non-Earth specimen. It was a gigantic one, easily bigger than a football, but an iron snail nonetheless. He switches to thermal and kills the brightness as far as he can. It confirms what he thought. The lower half of the serpent's body is hotter than the upper half. Now the question is, does this make it more or less vulnerable? He won't get anywhere dithering around, but first he needs to reposition. He needs to see how the creature reacts and lashes out, learn its movements. Yes, it's a big honking snake that could eat a school bus with ease, but axioms involved, so he needs to know if that's just its size and physical makeup, or if it's going to suddenly start slithering through the air at him like an ophidiophobe's worst nightmare, or start spitting a river of molten iron at him or something. He sends a message to the girls that he wants everyone to keep their distance. He's about to poke the snake. A few jumps later and he's behind the creature before he unlimbers the blue heron and has it extend its vacuum tunnel to the back of the beast's head.